excitement of starting college was overshadowed by an uneasiness I couldn't shake off. It was the fall of 2022, and I, along with my family, was filled with a mix of anticipation and anxiety as we approached the campus. Shortly after my arrival, I was assigned to a dorm with a roommate with whom I would be sharing my living space until the end of my studies, or so I thought at the time. My roommate's name was Demora, and honestly, I was a little scared of him because he was just different from others. As the semester progressed, my relationship with Demora became increasingly strained, each of us retreating into our respective corners of the room. I sought refuge in my studies and new friendships, creating a routine that kept me away from the dorm as much as possible. However, the situation with Demora was never far from my thoughts, a constant source of stress that I couldn't shake off. Despite this, I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, attributing his behavior to possible social awkwardness or personal issues he was grappling with. One evening, close to semester's end and looking forward to moving out, I found Demora unusually excited when I got back to the dorm. He was pacing the room, talking animatedly on the phone in a way I had never seen before. His usual reserve was gone, replaced by an enthusiasm that was both surprising and, given our strained relations, deeply unsettling. Curious and somewhat apprehensive, I asked him about the call once he had finished. For the first time, Demora engaged in a real conversation with me, his words tumbling out in a rush. He spoke of a family emergency that required his immediate attention, something that would take him away from campus for a few days. In his absence, he asked if I could look after his things and, somewhat cryptically, keep an eye on the dorm. I agreed, more out of a sense of duty than any desire to deepen our connection. Demora's sudden departure left me with a mix of relief and curiosity about the life of the person I had shared a room with for months yet knew so little about. The following day, his side of the room was conspicuously empty, his belongings left in neat piles, a silent testament to his abrupt exit. It was during this period of solitude that the twist occurred. Late one night, while studying, I stumbled upon a hidden drawer that I had never noticed before in the desk Demora used. Inside, I found a collection of letters and photographs that revealed a side of Demora I couldn't have imagined. The letters were from a girl, filled with affection and longing, painting a picture of a relationship that was both deeply emotional and troubled. The photographs showed moments of happiness, snapshots of a life outside the confines of our dorm room. The discovery was a shock, forcing me to reconsider everything I thought I knew about Demora. The image of the introverted, odd roommate I had built up in my mind clashed violently with the person who emerged from these letters and photographs. It was a reminder of how little we know about the people we live with, the hidden depths and secret lives that lie just beneath the surface. But the real twist is yet to come. Among the letters, I found an envelope with my name written on it. The handwriting was unmistakably Demora's. Tearing it open, I braced myself for what I might find within. As I read through the document, my blood ran cold. It outlined a horrifying sequence of actions, starting with my abduction under the cover of night. Demora planned to bind me, rendering me helpless, and then subject me to days of deprivation. No food, no water, just the terror of anticipation. The final act of his twisted plan was something out of a nightmare. He intended to end my life in a bathtub filled with acid, erasing any trace of my existence. The realization that I had been living with someone capable of conceiving such a plan was paralyzing. Every moment I spent in Demora's presence, every night shared in the same room, felt like a brush with death unknowingly dancing on the edge of a precipice. In a panic, I packed the letter and rushed to the campus police, my heart pounding with fear and urgency. The officers listened in stunned silence as I recounted my discovery, the letter serving as undeniable proof of the danger Demora posed not just to me, but potentially to others as well. The subsequent investigation by the authorities was swift. Using the information I provided, they were able to intervene before Demora could return and act on his sinister intentions. When confronted, the depth of his mental health issues became apparent, leading to his immediate removal from the university. and his placement into a facility equipped to provide him with the intensive care he required. The aftermath of the incident left the campus community shaken, but the world felt irrevocably altered for me. My sense of safety had been shattered, each day tinged with a lingering fear of what might have been. The decision to move out of the dormitory was immediate. I could no longer bear to stay in a place so burdened with dark memories. As I settled into a new living situation, the echoes of the ordeal followed me. The relief of Demora's apprehension was a small comfort against the knowledge of the terror he had planned. In the fall of 2019, my freshman year at a Big Ten school was in full swing, marked by the kind of vibrant campus life and spirited events that defined college for me. Halloween week was upon us, turning the campus into a week-long celebration. With our football team securing a major win that Saturday, the atmosphere was electric, fueling our anticipation for one of the biggest fraternity parties off campus. My connection to the event came through my friend Alexandra, whose boyfriend was on the football team, guaranteeing us access to the night's festivities. We arrived at the fraternity house around 11 p.m., stepping into a scene of controlled chaos. The air was thick with excitement, the house was full of music and chants, a collective celebration in the day's victory. As someone who embraced the college experience with open arms, I dove into the celebration, letting the joy of the moment take over. The party's energy was infectious, with everyone quickly caving into the night's wild abandon. My phone, unfortunately, didn't survive the early hours of the party. Its battery died due to a day's worth of use. I handed it over to Alexandra for safekeeping in her purse, a decision that would later haunt me. As the night progressed, my buzz from the drinks and the dancing convinced me to make a quick trip to the bathroom. The party, in full swing, seemed to blur around me as I made my way through the crowd. It was then, amidst the haze of my intoxicated state, that chaos erupted. The sudden cry of "Cops!" pierced the air, sending a shockwave of panic through the house. In a reflexive response, I found myself sprinting out of the house, greeted by the disorienting sight of flashing police lights and the chaos of people fleeing in all directions. In the confusion, I realized my lifeline, my phone, was still with Alexandra. My calls from my friends were lost in the commotion, the realization that I was alone and without my phone settling in with sobering clarity. The need to escape the chaos and the cold night air propelled me forward, leading me away from the familiarity of campus and into the uncertainty of the streets beyond. The cold was biting, a sharp contrast to the warmth of the party just moments ago. With each step, the effects of the alcohol began to disappear, replaced by a growing realization of my predicament. I found myself drawn to a building in the distance, its form looming out of the night like a beacon. Seeking refuge and warmth, I approached, finding the door surprisingly unlocked. Stepping inside, I expected the familiar halls of an academic building, but was met instead with darkness and silence, broken only by the faint glow of exit signs. The realization that I had not entered a place of safety, but something far more sinister, settled in as I found the door locked behind me. Exploring further, I stumbled upon a room that seemed ripped from a horror scene, complete with chains and an unsettling red light. The industrial hum and the sight of steam created an atmosphere of dread, a feeling that intensified when I discovered my escape route locked behind me. As panic began to set in, the sound of a door slamming elsewhere in the building jolted me into action. As I navigated through the labyrinth of chains and steam, my heart pounding in my chest, I caught a glimpse of a dark silhouette emerging from the doorway I had just passed through. The figure moved with a purpose, its presence alone enough to send waves of terror through me. The heavy footsteps that had seemed distant moments ago were now a clear and present danger closing in with each passing second. In a desperate bid for freedom, I turned my attention to the only potential exit in sight, a window on the far side of the room obscured partially by hanging chains. The sound of the footsteps grew louder, more determined, as if the person behind them knew exactly where I was heading. With no time to weigh my options, I charged towards the window, the cold fear in my veins giving me a surge of adrenaline. Just as I reached the window, a kick propelled by pure instinct and terror, shattered the glass, the noise echoing in the confined space. Behind me, the footsteps turned into a run, the urgency clear in the pace. Without a moment's hesitation, I launched myself through the broken window, the sharp edges catching at my clothes as I made my escape. The ground came up to meet me faster than I anticipated, the impact of the recycling bins below knocking the breath from my lungs. For a brief, disorienting moment, I lay among the bins, the cold air filling my lungs as I struggled to regain my bearings. Looking up, I expected to see the dark figure looming over me, ready to end my desperate flight. Instead, the window frame remained empty for a heart-stopping moment before the figure appeared, scanning the area below with an intensity that suggested a determination to find me. My body screamed in protest as I forced myself up and into the shadows of the nearby pine trees, every instinct telling me to remain unseen, to make myself as small and silent as possible. From my hiding spot, I watched the figure at the window, a sentinel searching for its prey. The realization that I had narrowly escaped a fate too terrifying to comprehend sent shivers down my spine. As soon as the figure retreated from the window, I took my chance. Moving as quietly as I could, I slipped from my hiding spot and ran. The streets, once unfamiliar, now offered a path to safety as I recognized landmarks leading back to my campus dorm. The relief of seeing my dorm building in the distance was overwhelming, a beacon of safety after hours of fear and uncertainty. My friends, waiting outside in a state of panic, enveloped me in a flurry of questions and relief. Their concern only deepened as I recounted my ordeal, the words tumbling out in a rush to convey the horror of the night. The daylight brought no comfort, only the realization that I had stumbled into a nightmare, one that could have ended in tragedy if not for sheer luck and a will to survive. The building, an abandoned warehouse with a history long forgotten, had become the stage for a night of terror that would haunt me for years to come. My name is Alex, a recent graduate from the University of Texas at Austin. My college years were unforgettable, filled with learning, friendship, and the kind of fun you tell stories about for years. I owe some of my best memories to those times, including meeting my fiancée, Sarah. But my freshman year? That was a different story. If you had asked me then, I'd have a lot less to say in favor of my college experience. What happened during my first year played a significant part in shaping who I am today, and it's something I shouldn't talk about. But I think it's time to share it. Coming from a small town, Austin felt like a different universe. I was just an average guy who did okay in high school, suddenly thrown into a world where everyone seemed to have their life planned out. The pressure to succeed was immense. By the end of my first semester, I was already struggling to keep up, not just academically, but socially and emotionally too. Then came the opportunity I thought would change everything. I received an email that looked like my ticket to fitting in and making something of myself. A prestigious consulting firm, Marlowe & Associates, had apparently found my LinkedIn profile and was interested in offering me an internship. It was the kind of break I hadn't dared to hope for. The email was personalized, complimenting my impressive achievements at university so far. Considering my poor performance, I should have seen the red flags, but the flattery blinded me. They were interested in an interview, and I jumped at the chance without a second thought. I corresponded with someone named Victor Hallberg, who introduced himself as a senior consultant at Marlowe & Associates. After a quick exchange of emails, Victor scheduled an interview with me. He provided an address for the firm's Austin office, which I promptly looked up. It seemed legitimate, situated in a well-known business district. Filled with a mix of nerves and excitement, I told my roommate Mike about the opportunity. He was skeptical, pointing out how odd it was for such a firm to reach out to a freshman with no relevant experience. I brushed off his concerns, too caught up in what this could mean for my future. The interview day had arrived. Dressed in the only suit I owned, I feel like an imposter among the bustling professionals of downtown Austin. I found the building, its polished exterior reflecting the morning sun. Inside, the receptionist directed me to a conference room on the top floor. Victor Hallberg met me there, his presence dominating the room. He was tall, with a firm handshake and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. We sat, and the interview began. It was all pretty standard at first, questions about my coursework and what I hoped to achieve. Then the conversation took a strange turn. Victor began to describe the special projects Marlowe & Associates was involved in. They weren't just consulting businesses. They were influencing global markets, shaping the future of technology, and, according to Victor, playing a part in the grand chess game of international politics. I was out of my depth, but Victor's charisma was mesmerizing. He spoke of a world I never knew existed, promising me a role in it. The job offer came at the end of the interview, along with a non-disclosure agreement and a hefty starting bonus. It was more money than I'd ever seen. All I had to do was sign on the dotted line. And I did, without a moment's hesitation. The moment I signed the papers, Victor's demeanor shifted. The friendly, charismatic consultant was gone, replaced by someone cold and calculating. He instructed me to wait for further communication and not to discuss the details of my employment with anyone. As I left the building, a sense of unease settled over me. What had I just gotten myself into? Over the next few days, I tried to shake off my doubts. I told myself I was just nervous about stepping into the unknown. But then, things started to get weird. I received an encrypted email with instructions for a preliminary assignment. It involved gathering information on one of my professors, Dr. Martinez, who apparently had ties to a competitor of Marlowe & Associates. I was shocked. This wasn't what I signed up for. I had imagined myself working on business strategies or market analysis, not spying on my own professors. When I tried to contact Victor to express my concerns, I found that all my emails bounced back. The phone number I had for him went straight to voicemail. That's when panic truly set in. I confided in Mike, who was rightfully angry that I hadn't listened to him earlier. Together, we decided to visit the office again, but when we arrived, we found an empty suite. The receptionist from the other day was nowhere to be seen. In fact, there was a different company's name on the door. Desperate for answers, I reached out to the university's legal aid for students. They were intrigued by my story and agreed to look into Marlowe & Associates. What they found was chilling. There was no record of a consulting firm by that name operating in Austin. The address led to a co-working space that rented out offices for short periods. Feeling trapped and unsure whom to trust, I went to Dr. Martinez, the target of my supposed assignment. To my surprise, he listened to my story with a grave expression. After I finished, he revealed that he was part of an ongoing investigation into a group known for targeting university students for illicit purposes, ranging from information theft to corporate espionage. Dr. Martinez had been working with federal agents to expose this group, and my coming forward provided a crucial piece of evidence. The non-disclosure agreement I signed, the encrypted email, and even my testimony could help take down the operation. The following weeks were a blur of meetings with investigators, giving statements, and a growing fear for my safety. The university provided support, ensuring my continued education was not disrupted. Slowly, the investigation led to several arrests. Victor Hallberg, or whatever his real name was, remained at large, but the network he was part of had been significantly dismantled. As for me, I learned a lesson in caution, the importance of skepticism, and the value of asking for help.